Chapter 10, The Future of Events, Responsibility, Inclusion, and Community. Congratulations! You've made it to the final chapter of the course. I'm so glad that you've committed to finishing this journey of ours, because in some ways, I think this final chapter is the most important. Maybe not the most important for landing your dream job or for your day-to-day work, but absolutely the most important for the future of your career, and probably for the industry as a whole. Up until now, the course has been about helping you to be a star at all the aspects of event planning that have been part of our work since humans started holding events. Some of the details have definitely changed over the years, especially with the introduction of digital platforms, but the fundamentals remain the same. And all of those skills are so important. They'll never go out of date, and events just can't happen without them. But they're no longer enough. We've realized in recent decades that it's not enough to just put on great events. We also have to be good citizens and amazing neighbors. We need to include a lot of people who traditionally were excluded from our events. And we need to shift our thinking from one-off gatherings to long-lasting communities. This chapter is all about how to accomplish that, because that's the future of event planning. And the quicker we internalize where these ideas are headed, the faster that we'll find ourselves leading the industry as a whole. So if you're ready, let's talk about what's to come. Lesson 1, how to be responsible, CSR and ESG. Big idea, be the best at doing good. I probably shouldn't have opened this chapter with super sexy acronyms like ESG and CSR, huh? But we're starting here because it's the foundation of everything we're going to talk about in this chapter. Investopedia defines corporate social responsibility, or CSR, as a business model that helps a company be socially accountable. That means being conscious of the kind of impact that we have on every aspect of society. A few of those aspects get summed up in the acronym ESG, which stands for Environmental, Social, and Governance Responsibility. This has really become a new standard for retaining customers and attracting new ones, particularly for millennials who care just as much about what a brand stands for as for its products. It's no longer enough to make cutting-edge gadgets or build a website that sells great products. Customers want to know about where the product was made, how sustainably it was produced, and whether the person who dropped it off at the doorstep was being treated well by their bosses, and whether the company is composed of a diverse team from the board down to the supply chain. People care more about their products and services now, and that filters down to what they want from our events too. I truly believe that as event planners, we have a responsibility to focus not only on the community inside the venue, but also to show respect for and give back to the communities where our events take place. So if you're hosting a large conference in a city, be like a Boy or Girl Scout and leave the place better than when you found it. Make that city feel thrilled that you're there, rather than disrupting their life by added traffic and hence pollution, road closures, and waste. You can also be a good neighbor on the global scale. Take account of sustainability before you even determine a venue or event location. Consider how far attendees will have to travel by plane or ground vehicle to get to the destination. Ideally, you want to plan an event that limits air travel. And if there is substantial travel, consider purchasing carbon offsets at a minimum to mitigate the impact. I think the greatest potential for CSR lies with our audience themselves, though. We have the chance to really give them a sense of ownership here. It's not enough to show that we care about our carbon footprint. We want to give our customers and guests a stake in the outcome. One of my favorite examples of this comes from a project that Google did in 2015 called Building a Better Bay Area. The idea was that Google wanted to invest more than $5 million into local nonprofit organizations in the San Francisco Bay Area. But of course, this being Google, they wanted to add a unique twist. So rather than deciding themselves where all the money should go, Google installed these large interactive posters in public places across the San Francisco Bay Area that allowed the general public to decide where to send the money. This meant that people could spend a couple minutes to learn about local causes and feel as though they were really making a difference without spending a dime. And you probably won't be surprised to learn that people were often so moved by these posters that they decided to donate too. What a great way to crowdsource your CSR. Now, I love that idea because it gave everyone the sense that they could contribute to a larger outcome and also generated positive brand deposits for Google. CSR initiatives don't have to be costly or complex. For instance, for National Women's Day, you could give out pins for all attendees to wear at your event to show their support, or have an interactive wall where each attendee could stop and write one way a woman touched their life in a positive way. For one internal event that I produced in India, we brought in local vendors, all either women-owned or small business owners, and then we set up a bazaar for attendees to shop at. This supported the local economy and also gave attendees a wonderful memento of their trip to India, since everyone wanted to bring something home to show off. You can also create a campaign that extends beyond your event. One private organization called Battery Powered has a quarterly event where a theme is selected, and then multiple nonprofit organizations show up to tell the members about the cause and give them a chance to vote on which 5 organizations to support. Often, members get really engaged and then end up donating extra money to these organizations or becoming integrated into that community because of the exposure. You could absolutely do something similar at an event. Or maybe create a pledge from the entire group of attendees at an event that culminates at a later event to celebrate. Here's the takeaway. You want your guests to leave your events feeling delighted by every part of your event, and that should include the impact that they had on the community by being there. You want to make sure that your attendees leave feeling good all around. Help them feel that way by also helping them do good for those around them. Lesson 2, Sustainable Event Planning. Big idea. Think beyond the show's end. There's no way to sugarcoat this. As an industry, we can tend to be wasteful without even realizing it. I don't say that to blame anyone or shame us. As a species, we haven't done a great job of taking care of the planet. But the good news is, it doesn't have to be that way. And in this lesson, I'd like to offer some ways that you can use your events to not only tread more lightly in the resources department, but also help your guests understand how they can bring sustainability back into their everyday lives. To start, you'll first want to take into consideration all the macro and micro components that go into your events. This includes what you're buying, how much you're fabricating, and how you're fabricating it, how far you're trucking, and how much you can source local, organic, and sustainable catering. You'll also want to limit waste, we'll touch on swag in the next lesson, and try to repurpose and reuse as much as you can. And then, of course, these days, we also have the amazing option of going virtual or hybrid if we decide that the live event isn't worth the cost and environmental impact. If you can go virtual while still meeting your event goals, all the better. And make sure to explain to your audience how that factored into your decision. They'll appreciate hearing your thought process, and it can't hurt to build brand love either. Consider everything that you're purchasing for the event. Can you instead rent or repurpose items you have in storage? Can you use recycled or reclaimed materials rather than brand new ones? We used empty paint drums one year as highboy tables for a street art event, and they were not only super sustainable, but they looked awesome with the theme, and people thought they were hip too. Can you eliminate any shrink wrap used for shipping by using shipping blankets instead? Each of these little tiny decisions adds up. And have a plan for after the event as well. What can you repurpose for the next year? Donate or recycle? I'll often donate extra swag and materials to local schools, shelters, and other organizations. That way, you're both eliminating waste and helping out the community, which is a win-win in my book. And then try to reuse large fabricated pieces when it makes sense. They can always be reskinned if needed. One time, I actually repurposed an entire stage backdrop that was made of copper. It saved me a lot of money, was much more sustainable, and it looked incredible both times, if I do say so myself. You might consider working with a fulfillment company for help storing merchandise, decor, and furniture that your team can reuse later. if you're going to spend the money to create something like custom tent top tables in a really high quality material, you can reuse those year after year. And since they're harder to find, it'll save you time as well. But storage and transport can be expensive, so be sure to do a cost analysis and work with your local vendor so that you're not trucking these things too far. Storing event properties and items can work especially well at bigger companies with teams who can repurpose things at different events. We had a practice after every Google event where we'd create a deck that outlined our furniture and decor items, and then we circulated it to other teams who might want to reuse this stuff in an upcoming event. We'd say, hey, we're buying this for an event. Does anyone else want to use it? Things like bar carts, sofas, dining room tables, and so on. And if you source really cool custom pieces, maybe you can make these permanent pieces for your corporate real estate. I love doing this when we can because it memorializes your event and keeps you from having to throw it out. Have any of you seen the movie The Internship that took place on the Google campus? Guess where they got the decor for that movie? That's right, it was repurposed from my team's events. You should also work with your venues and vendors and caterers to help make sure that your event is as sustainable as possible. When you're selecting a venue for an event, look for venues that are LEED certified, like the Moscone Center in San Francisco. LEED certification means that the venue has proven that their building has sustainability built in. Some properties will give attendees the option of eliminating plastic, and even if they don't, you can still consider a no plastic policy of your own. And if you're hosting an outdoor event, you can get creative by trying sustainable power sources like solar or sustainable biodiesel. You might even find some sponsorship opportunities here. I once had a fun station where attendees were actually powering aspects of the conference by stationary biking via an event sponsor activation. They loved the workout, it drew a ton of traffic to the sponsor, saved us costs on power, and was great for the environment. Next, let's talk about catering. I always inquire about sustainability practices when evaluating an RFP for caterers and agencies, and hesitate to hire those who do not have these standards in place. Ideally, you'll be able to use caterers that can source locally grown and raised produce, fish, and meat, can serve meals using compostables, or actual glassware and plates to cut back on waste. It also goes without saying to make sure that you limit the number of trash cans at your event and supply more recycling and compost bins. Now, composting is great, but there's a problem. People never know what's compostable, recyclable, and what can actually go in the trash. Thankfully, there are now organizations that you can hire locally who will send their team to your event and stand near the composting area to help educate your attendees on how to properly dispose of their waste. I use a company called Green Mary in San Francisco. What a great conversation starter and sign of your commitment. And also, it's knowledge that can stick with your audience long after they leave. And if this feels daunting and you're not sure where to start, there are also now some pretty incredible resources to help you take the guesswork out of sustainability. One company called Isla is doing wonderful work to help offer guidance and support on environmental issues. They've created a useful tool called Proceed, and they're developing a web-based carbon emissions calculator too. There's also a product called Event Decision that allows planners to measure an event's emissions profile, even at the very earliest stages in the planning process. I'd recommend checking out both. And we've really just scratched the surface in this lesson. There are so many ways to make your event more friendly to its surroundings. Once you start looking for ways to make your programs more sustainable, I think you'll be surprised at how many possibilities you will find. Lesson 3. Diverse, equitable, and inclusive events. Big idea. Genuine community means including everyone. Thankfully, we hear the words diversity, equity, and inclusion a lot more than we did 10 years ago. We're doing so much better these days, but we still have a long way to go, and there's a lot that event organizers can do right now to create some authentic, inclusive experiences. If you're wondering why this is such a big deal, I think there are two main reasons. First, you want to make sure that everyone feels welcome. If people feel excluded or like they're second-class citizens at your event, they're not going to have a great experience, and your brand love is going to be impacted as a result. And second, bringing in attendees with different backgrounds means bringing in a beautifully diverse array of insights into the event space. The people in the room who have always been there anyway will be better off because you made the room more inclusive. I think we know how important diversity is for the people in the room, but it's an easy detail to overlook when you're planning everything else. But it can make all the difference for the quality of conversations. What kind of inclusion are we talking about here? I mean, paying attention to communities that are underrepresented in corporate America. These can be along the lines of race, religion, age, gender, class, and even education. You also want to take accessibility into account. Do you need sessions translated into sign language? Are the seats and tables for your event wheelchair accessible? There are so many details that are so easy to overlook. Guide dogs need a place to relieve themselves. Make sure to talk to your venue about what's possible there. An easy way to get help here is to get your event evaluated in advance by someone who has these needs. We had a team at Google that would do this for us. One year, we didn't realize that the tables that we had for the tech demos were too high for those in wheelchairs, so we actually rebuilt them at the right height in time for the event. The good news is there are now more opportunities than ever for event organizers to promote diversity at every step in the planning process, even on the registration screen. When they're registering, for example, you'll want to give attendees the option of choosing a gender-neutral prefix like MX in addition to the standard options of Mr., Mrs., or Miss. But adding a checkbox to your registration is just the start. It's table stakes at this point. We can do so much more. Make sure that you're including gender-neutral bathrooms. Instead of calling a mother's room, call it a parent's room. Just being aware of inclusive lexicon can do wonders for making people feel seen and heard and avoiding embarrassing negative PR moments for your brand as well. These subtle touches will make it clear to your guests that you've thought through all the details that will help them feel welcomed and appreciated. Once people are at the event, I like to create opportunities for underrepresented groups to get together, build community, and support one another. So host a breakfast, a lunch, or a reception for them to meet. Arrange a happy hour the day before the official start of an event, so people can make alliances and find each other at the start of a large event, which makes them feel a lot less isolated. I also like to invite allies to certain parts of events, but limit their presence at other times. For example, at one women's conference on leadership, we invite male allies to just lunch and happy hour, and then limit the rest of the conference to women so that they have safe space to speak up among peers. One of the best ways to make diversity front and center at your event is to dedicate a session or panel to it. I think that's probably why diversity panels and sessions have become increasingly popular in recent years. But since these can cover some sensitive topics, let me give you a few things to keep in mind. First, I recommend that your panel speakers are involved with other parts of the program and weren't invited just for this panel on diversity and inclusion. That can create the perception of tokenism, where you bring someone in just to say that you had them there. Instead, you want it to feel like an obvious thing that you'd have a panel on the subject. Obvious because the whole event has been so inclusive to begin with. So don't just have diversity panels. You should be having amazing speakers from every walk of life in every panel. Second, plan far enough ahead that none of this feels like an afterthought. If it is an afterthought, attendees will be able to sniff it a mile away, and that will often do more harm than good for your brand. So, don't slot your diversity breakout session at the last minute at a suboptimal time and location. This will make it seem like it's low priority, and everyone will wonder why you didn't care more. A few more tips on the execution side. You want to make sure that everyone feels like your team is there to help with whatever needs they might have. We talked about that level of service before, but it's even more important when it comes to creating a welcoming environment for these communities. So be thoughtful about the ways you're offering help. If you're asking them about special needs during registration, send attendees an email ahead of the event to say, hey, we saw that you've identified this need. How can we help you? Here's where we'll meet you the day of the event. Do things like this to go above and beyond to show that you'll be there for them. I really like to have lanyards with unique colors for those with special needs because it may be invisible to the rest of the attendees, but it lets my team spot someone who might need an assist. You can even be inclusive in your venue and vendor sourcing. At a women's leadership conference I planned, I made sure to hire all women-owned vendors, from the caterers and the production agency, all the way down to the photographer and the many contractors. From the snacks to the surprise concert, people said that they weren't used to this kind of representation, and they really appreciated it. I also encourage you to make sure that your own team has diverse representation. I once had a couple of volunteers join my team who were more diverse than our core planning team at the time. They were able to provide some feedback on specific language on our signage that we didn't realize could be perceived in the wrong way for certain groups. I was really grateful that they felt comfortable enough to provide that feedback, and it made our event all the more inclusive as a result. During that same conference, when one of our senior female leaders was interviewing a famous young YouTube performer, the artist talked about how cool it was that even the sound engineer was female. She said she'd never worked with a female sound engineer, but was inspired by the level of thought that we put into our inclusive staff. So, if you don't think this stuff matters, it does. And it matters to the people who are working at the event just as much as the attendees. That's the level of commitment to DEI that I think our attendees deserve. It will allow us to build communities of allies that last far beyond the event itself. And it helps us to ensure that the conversations at the event are as dynamic and inclusive as they can be. Lesson 4, the fine art of guilt-free gifting. Big idea, the best swag lasts. This may surprise some of you now, but no lie, one of my least favorite parts of events is swag. I appreciate it because our attendees appreciate it, but I'd much prefer spending money on a great experience over a giveaway any day. That said, swag can actually be strategic. So, I'm devoting an entire lesson on how to do swag the right way. And that means giving people something that they'll love, something that will last, and something that was sourced thoughtfully and responsibly. The reason our industry does swag is because when you source it strategically, it can be a cost-effective way to extend your brand beyond the event. But the key there is that it needs to be sourced strategically. To make the most of a swag handout, just like any other element of an event, you need a thoughtful plan. Swag can represent your brand in a way that no other medium can, with a physical item that people take with them and sometimes show off after the event concludes. And as we've discussed in previous chapters, swag can also be a great way to offer incentives. At one recent event I hosted, we wanted to increase our survey response rate from the previous year. So instead of handing out the logoed event t-shirt at registration to everyone as we'd always done in the past, we incentivized people by only giving the shirts to attendees who'd completed our event survey. The minute that we opened up that survey, we had a massive line, and people were willing to wait up to 30 minutes to complete the survey for their swag. Imagine people forming a line to fill out your survey. And the results speak for themselves. Our survey response rate was 625% greater than the previous year. So, swag clearly has its place. Where to begin finding the good stuff? I'd suggest starting the hunt for the perfect swag with a list of goals, and never give away swag just for swag's sake. Understand the why behind the merchandise you're buying so it offers solid ROI and won't immediately find itself in the dumpster. So, consider the following. Do you want attendees to return year after year and collect a new t-shirt every time, which they'll go on to wear throughout the year? Do you want to give away a high-quality item that can be used for years to come, like a leather laptop cover or maybe a fleece coat? Do you want to get your company's products, perhaps a new hardware device, into the hands of attendees and influencers? Do you want the swag to become a core part of your event experience? Some conferences advertise their giveaways and make them an unforgettable way to integrate their sponsors. Take TED, for example. Their gift bag is part of the experience that many repeat attendees look forward to. and even share on social media. One year, Ted gave attendees these sleek suitcases that went for like $450 retail, plus a gift certificate to use to shop for items to fill it at the event. On the second floor of the huge Vancouver Convention Center, one large foyer is specifically designated to house everything from books signed by conference speakers to bespoke artisan jewelry. I was there and can attest that the beauty of this experience was that they made it an experience where guests could actually get to know each other and sponsors while shopping for something that truly piqued their interest or that they wanted to bring home to a loved one. One of the common threads to all these examples is that they include swag that people want. Sometimes they really want. That's why I say, forget the cheap, low-quality junk. Find giveaways that are somehow useful or meaningful, or a product that you want to get into the hands of attendees. Another fun way to do this is to give people credits or let them earn tokens that can be exchanged for a whole range of gifts at a swag store. And here's another great place to build sustainability into your events. Fair trade products are a great example of unique and responsibly sourced goods. If you're not familiar, fair trade is a certification designed to help business owners in developing countries get better prices for their goods. At large conferences, I like to provide water bottles as a staple swag item, so attendees can use these rather than plastic bottles and cups during and after the conference. Swag can also be a wonderful way to connect with the community. For Google I/O one year, we featured 5 different shirt designs made by different local artists. Attendees loved the surprise of having some choice, and the shirts went on to become collectibles. You can even go so far as to give each attendee some credit to make a donation to a local charity of their choice. So, as you're surveying your giveaway options, remember, gifts that are loved and gifts that last are the things we value the most. Put in a little extra thought here, and you're guaranteed to find swag that gets cherished for years to come. Lesson 5, a look at what's to come. Big idea, the future of events is brighter than ever. The event planning industry has likely never seen more change than it's seeing right now. It's a thrilling time to be an event planner. Stressful, sure, and with a lot of uncertainty, but also really, really exciting. In this final lesson, I want to describe some of the most promising trends on the horizon. Some of this will be actionable, some of it's more conceptual, but I hope that all of it will serve to remind you what a great career this is and how much success is out there to be grabbed with a little initiative and ingenuity. And also, why this is a career that will make you millions. Let's start with technology. When we look to data, everything points to technology becoming even more tightly integrated in our day-to-day work. A study from the Enterprise Event Marketing Group found that the use of technology can create a 20% increase in event attendance while reducing related costs by up to 30%. Anything that can boost attendance while making events cheaper is certain to see wider adoption. The challenge to technology is that it's always changing. Yesterday's trends are today's punchlines. A few years ago, the buzz was centered on the 6-second video app Vine, event apps, and automated messaging. Now it's TikTok and Instagram, virtual reality, and virtual event platforms. It's anyone's guess what tomorrow will hold. I'm hoping that someone watching this course will be one of its pioneers. I can't mention technology without addressing virtual and hybrid events. They are here to stay. In retrospect, this was inevitable. They allow for global inclusion and sustainability and a lot of flexibility for gathering your community. By contrast, traditional events are heavy on carbon, require substantial budget, and often so expensive that a lot of people can't attend. Going virtual or hybrid democratizes the event and improves the numbers and diversity of the people who can join your conversation. That's powerful stuff, and I think we're only going to see that trend accelerate as our event platforms continue to improve. One really promising technology to watch is event diagramming software. Diagramming has been around for a while, but now planners can complete their venue diagrams by dragging and dropping virtual props or constructing 3D walkthroughs or designing different levels of comfort seating, all on the same platform. Within the next few years, planners will be able to construct virtual attendee experience simulations too. The great thing about these tools is that the results can easily be shared with venues, clients, and collaborators to make sure that everyone knows what's in store with fewer site visits required. Next, we'll continue to see a rise in event apps since they provide nearly limitless ways to connect and assist attendees. They can also be a brilliant connective glue between virtual and in-person attendees for hybrid events. The challenge, I think, will be to make sure that these apps don't become part of the digital noise that seems to be increasing each year. The reality is that we live in a world where marketing infiltrates every part of our lives, and there's a fine line between informing and irritating our guests. Sending push notifications to let an attendee know about a newly opened session that they were waitlisted for, or maybe a fun pop-up food and beverage experience, can certainly be helpful, even delightful. But studies have shown that sending an attendee more than 10 push notifications in one day has negative effects. You certainly don't want to drive anyone to disable notifications altogether, so be ultra selective when planning push communication, and be sure to put some per-user limits. If it's obvious that you're delivering value or hyper-relevant updates or health and safety announcements, then go ahead, push away. But remember, when someone installs your event app, they're trusting you, so don't break that trust. Let's also talk about AI. Lately, artificial intelligence and machine learning have become so much more useful than they were even 5 years ago, and we're sure to see these tools finding more uses across our industry. AI can help tailor a program to each person's needs and wants, making the whole event experience more engaging and relevant. AI-powered concierge apps are prolific in the hospitality industry already and come in the form of digital assistants or voice-activated hotel check-in agents. I think we'll start to see these apps build in more person-to-person interaction. Attendees will also ask their digital concierge a question, and the AI will handle these requests or flag a skilled worker nearby at the event. One of the common threads in all the tech that I've mentioned so far is customization. We're moving away from events that are one-size-fits-all. Guests are already using apps to customize the food that they're ordering at home. And these kinds of products are opening up even more options for events as well. At Coachella in 2019, Postmates had a brilliant activation where festival goers could order food through the app and then pick it up at a Postmates event hub. When the attendees showed up at the hub, they'd find music and lounge seating and even more great food samples. Oh, and of course, branded swag. It was such a great way to drive awareness, adoption, and brand love. They've started doing this at baseball stadiums too, and I think we're going to see a lot more of this in the coming years. Projection mapping is one of the more creative technical trends that I've been tracking. Imagine entering a convention center and being totally immersed in a rejuvenating experience. You hear the sweet sounds of birds and crickets, and even feel the warmth of sunshine on your skin. Instead of registration tables and flat walls, you see a colorful forest growing before your eyes. Greenery of all shades, swaying flowers and shrubs, flitting wings from lovely birds. Is it a mirage? No, it's an augmented reality experience created by an intricate array of projectors and a state-of-the-art sound system. Devices can now light up practically any surface and turn nearly anything into a 3D interactive display. Projection mapping helps us incorporate truly transformational design elements into any space we see fit. It cuts the cost of creating scenic wall displays and can create entertaining distractions for guests if they're waiting in line. It's also a much more sustainable option for planners than fabrication or traveling thousands of miles around the globe to exotic locales. So, cheaper, easier, and more sustainable. Expect more venues to start building in projection mapping into their offering as well, so it's less expensive and more turnkey to produce. All right, we're on to the home stretch now. 2 more trends to watch. The first is influencer marketing. Influencers have played a role in promotion for a while now, and it doesn't look like it's going to change anytime soon. That's because influencers with reach can help brands reach their target markets and build credibility if done well. Your work with influencers will eventually be built directly into your planning budget if it isn't already. An Instagram influencer's monetary value is calculated at roughly $1,000 per 100,000 followers. YouTube sensations are said to be worth $100 for every 1,000 views that they receive on videos. So you can identify your own influencers or work with companies like Tracker, Clear, and Hyper to help you evaluate which influencers will represent and serve your brand the best. Now more than ever, people are making decisions by listening to the opinions of others. The key is to figure out who the influencers are in your market. At a tech event, your top influencer might not be a YouTube star, but she could be a coder who everybody respects and trusts. Know your market and track who they're engaging with. Then get those influencers as speakers, maybe, or give them another place in your program. But influencers, as great as they are not enough. Our goal with events should be to create lasting relationships among attendees, between attendees, and with our brands. That's why I think the most important trend coming for our industry is a shift to a focus on community. Events are communities, even if we didn't traditionally think of them that way. They make event planners community organizers too. When we started talking about the work of event planning in Chapter 2, I stressed how important it was to have a clear set of key performance indicators. If I could only have one KPI for the rest of my career, it would be something like create an event so good that it creates a community that changes your life. That goal may sound hard to attain, but the tools and approaches that I've covered in this chapter can help us get there. They show how our industry is shifting away from one-off gatherings towards ongoing, sustained relationships, and about being better humans in the process. Event planning may still include the analog traditions we've loved for years, but it's also now about Slack channels and Twitter posts and platforms that weave a fabric connecting people between events. That's a new and exciting place for our industry to move. And it's my hope that after celebrating your completion of all 10 chapters in this course, and maybe celebrating with a great glass of wine, that you'll join me in seeing just how bright we can make the future of event planning.